Hi, thank you, Fernando, for hosting once again our series of webinar. And this one is special because it's a project that I'm also working on. So I'm very happy to have this, which is a very relevant topic in Europe, but elsewhere in the world, where is facing the challenge of efficient operation of the power system with increasing penetration of distributed resources. But just I'm going today, I'm not presenting the project, although I'm also a researcher, but presenting ISGAN. For those that don't know it, I'm the leader of ISGAN Annex 8, which is the ISGAN Academy. But ISGAN is, again, just to give a background, the International Smart Grid Action Network, which is the only global government-to-government forum for smart grid. And this is a joint initiative from the International Energy Agency and the Clean Energy Ministerial. So it's, the objective of ISGAN is to become a strategic platform to support high-level government knowledge transfer and action for accelerate and development and deployment of smarter, cleaner electricity grids around the world. And this is important because it's an international organization, and we are divided in different working groups called annexes. And again, as I said before, this is part of the Annex 8 activity, but also we have these different annexes from Annex 2 to Annex 7, which are also active. For instance, Annex 2 on smart grid case studies, cost-benefit analysis and tools, synthesis and insights for decision makers, smart grid international research facility network, powers transmission and distribution systems, and smart grid transitions, Annex 8 in the ISGAN Academy. So these are the countries that are part of ISGAN. We are 26 participants all over the world, I will say, in all different continents. And there are more countries that have showed their interest to join in the future as well. So what we'll do in ISGAN is, again, on knowledge sharing and between countries. So we have a conference presentation, policy brief, technology brief, technical papers, discussion papers, casebook, workshops, and webinars such as this one. And in addition, we have strategic partnerships with the International Energy Agency, Clean Energy Ministerial, the Global Smart Grid Federation, the Mission Innovation, which are one of the leaders initiatives all over the world and institutions on the smart grids that touches smart grid topics. Also, there is a broad international expert network that is supporting ISGAN activities. Also global, regional, and national policy support, and as well knowledge sharing among technical assistance and project coordination. For further information, all these deliverables also are available in our webpage. So you have it there. So you can have access to past webinars in that webpage and under ISGAN Academy, and also other policy brief and documents from ISGAN in general. So once again, thank you very much, the presenters, for making the effort and to provide this interesting webinar, and also thank you the Cooper Alliance to hold the platform and to provide their support. So with this, I leave the floor to Marco Baron from Enel, who is the project coordinator.
Thank you very much, Jose. I hope you can hear me. Actually, I would like to thank you, ISGAN webinar participants and the CoordiNet members to have the possibility to present our project. Actually, I'm the coordinator of the CoordiNet project, the Horizon 2020 CoordiNet project, and I'm here with Jose Pablo, Chris Kessels, and Goncha to represent the whole consortium. This is a very huge consortium. The project answered to the call for proposal ES5 dealing with large-scale TSO DSO and consumer demonstrations of innovative services through demand response, storage, and small-scale distributed generation. 2 projects won the competition, CoordiNet and the so-called interface project, and we started at the beginning of this year to work on the project, so approximately 1 year has already passed. The project will last 30 months. It is a 90 million euro and a 15 million euro funded project. And we got a huge consortium made of 23 partners plus 10 linked third parties. These 10 linked third parties, practically most of them are members of the European Association of Electricity Distributors, which is EDSO, and they contribute to the activities of the project in order to bring their experience and get valuable results from the project for their internal activities. This project has a threefold objective. One is to demonstrate the activation and provision of services through the coordination of TSOs and DSOs. The second one is to define and test commonly defined products that provide services to the network operators. Actually, we call them standardized products, but we will see later on in the presentation that a full standardization probably is not possible. It is better to define common features of the project, of the products, and ranges for the values of such parameters in order to have a uniform definition of such products. And third objective is to develop TSO DSO consumer collaboration platforms in each demo. And starting from this experience, the project will provide recommendations for the development of a future pan-European market. Sorry, before going on, 7 European countries, the slide before, 7 European countries are represented. In 3 European countries like Spain, Greece, and Sweden, we develop 3 demos, in particular in the areas of Sweden, with North of Sweden, Skåne, Gotland, and Uppland, Mesogia and Kefalonia in Greece, Malaga, Cadiz, Murcia, Alicante, and Albacete in Spain. Next slide, please, José. Here is a representation of the consortium. I will not waste your time, but okay, one of the advantages of this project is that in the consortium, the DSOs and TSOs of each country where the demos are implemented join the project. So ID and Distribución from Spain, together with the TSO Red Eléctrica de España, Svenska Kraftnät, Vattenfall, E.ON from Sweden, Edno, and IPTO from Greece. Actually, we also involved the key stakeholders, the key actors of the electricity value chain in each demo area in order to have also the possibility to involve municipalities, production and consumption resources in each demo to get the highest value from such demos. Next slide, José, please. The main driver of the call for proposal at the end of this project was the delivery of the clean energy package. This in particular, the Electricity Directive Article 32 defines somehow the possibility for the DSOs and TSO to jointly procure flexibility services. The winter package proposed that DSOs are also entitled to use flexibility sources like distributed generation, demand response, and storage in a market-based approach and in coordination, of course, with the TSOs. So these practically impact the project that we will tackle the 3 main boxes that you see in the directive. So the analysis of the optimal use of resources, the way DSO and TSO should coordinate to ensure an efficient and secure operation of the grid, and the facilitation of the market development for the engagement of the end users. Next slide, please. I saw that a lot of stakeholders joined the webinar. Actually, we introduced this slide to make this scenario a bit more generic. The electricity systems in Europe, but also out of Europe, differ a lot based on the local conditions, independently from the levels of voltage levels of each electricity network. I mean, when we target distributed energy resources, we mainly refer to production plants and loads that are connected to HV, MV, and LV network. Of course, business models and local conditions impact the way each market has been developed or will be developed in the near future. We see for sure the role of aggregators, both for users and producers who want to participate and are connected to MV and LV network, but of course for technical reasons and for the aggregation of smaller consumers, we see the role of aggregator in aggregating resources in the LV network. Next slide, please. This is just the conclusion of the introduction. I mean, within the free demos, we will develop the TSO DSO consumer collaboration platform, which gives the opportunity to provide and procure flexibility services in such areas. Starting from the experience of the free demos, the project will deliver the final recommendations for the development of the flexibility market. In order to deliver such conclusions, of course, in addition to the results derived from the demos, we should also take into consideration the analysis of the best coordination schemes that could be applicable in the demos, but in general could be feasible for the TSO and TSOs to coordinate each other. The analysis of the ICT requirements, possibly standard ICT requirements that could be applied in order to develop such platforms. And also, starting from the experience of the demos, we could also analyze the feasibility of such services, and this analysis will be supported for sure by an economic assessment of the usefulness of such services. And of course, the intention of the Commission is to invite us to scale somehow the analysis and identify the replicability potential of our solutions also in the other countries that are not represented by the consortium partners. That's the end of the introduction, Jose. I think that this is the last slide. So unfortunately, in a few minutes, I have to leave the webinar. I think that probably there is no question for the introduction. Otherwise, I will give the floor to Chris Kessels for the analysis of services, products, and market models.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Chris Kessels. I will now give an overview, as Marco said, on the services, products, and market models, which we will consider within the CoordiNet project. I'm seeing whether, okay, I'm asking control. Okay, so first I will give some general definitions that we use in the project. So grid services are defined as services provided to distribution system operators and transmission system operators to keep the operation of the grid within acceptable limits for security of supply, and are delivered mainly by third parties. So this definition we have taken from the report on an integrated approach to active system management. And then we also introduce two definitions for products. So we make a distinction between standard products, which are harmonized products for the exchange of grid services with common characteristics across Europe, so shared by all DSOs, or by all TSOs and DSOs, while we define specific products as products different from standard products. These definitions have been generalized from the definitions as also are used within the guideline on electricity balancing. As Marco already said, this does not mean that all product attributes will be common for standard products, but we want to strive to a certain level of standardization. And we will actually investigate within the project whether product standardization at European level could actually be achieved for certain services, or whether we need to have a lower level, for instance, member state level of standardization, if this would be more appropriate. Then going to the next slide. This slide shows the flexible sources on the left-hand side, as also has been introduced by Marco. So we consider all kinds of flexibility sources at all voltage levels to participate into the markets for grid services. This is one of the main objectives of the CoordiNet project, to mobilize also distributed energy resources to provide services to the DSO and DSO. And the grid services we consider within the project are balancing, inertial response, congestion management, voltage control, black start, and controlled islanding. As you can see on the slide, some of the services are considered for both the DSO and the TSO, while some are only considered for one of them, like inertial response for the TSO and control islanding solely for the DSO. And to enable a market-based allocation of these services, we actually define products for grid services. So this is shown on the next slide. So how do we go from these grid services towards product definitions? What we did is we defined one or more standard products for each of the grid services with some commonly defined attributes. This does not mean, as I said, that all product attributes are fixed. So we leave some as a decision for the system operators who procure these products. But where possible, we also propose some common attributes for different services, so that some products, for instance, for congestion management and balancing, could be traded on the same markets. But we, of course, here also we need to take the note that some product attributes will still be service specific, like, for example, for congestion management, locational information needs to be more detailed than for balancing, for example. And we haven't defined specific products yet, but depending on the needs of the demonstrators and their findings, they can be added at a later stage within the project. Then finally, for each service, we can define a capacity product next to the energy product. So this is always considered as an option. And the process to define these products was to propose a first version of the products, and then we assembled feedback on these. We received feedback from 16 partners, including all the DSOs and TSOs and linked third parties, DSOs in the project. And then we came to a proposal of products for all of these services. And as Marco also said, it's not that we always have fixed values. We also have ranges of values which will be tested in the demonstrators and which can be made more specific later within the project. This slide shows the standard product characteristics that we use within the project. So there is not really a common terminology for product specifications in Europe for all services. And the discussions on standardizations have mainly been focusing on balancing and standardization between TSOs. So we started from that discussion and we followed a similar approach, but extended it to DSOs and also to non-balancing services. No, we don't have time to go through all these attributes, but I can maybe highlight a few aspects. So we want to go for an easy market integration of all types of flexibility. So for example, we assume that the minimum quantity should be as low as possible from a technical and economic point of view. So for instance, we chose to go as low as 100 kilowatt for some services. For other services, it's still 1 megawatt. For example, we allow aggregation wherever it is possible, and we allow for asymmetric products also wherever it is possible, to allow these all types of flexibility to participate on an equal footing. Then going to the next slide, this slide gives the list of products we consider within CoordiNet for the different grid services. So it's a long list of products that we consider. You see on the left-hand side the balancing, the typical reserve products that are currently procured. So frequency containment reserves, automatic and manual frequency restoration reserves, and replacement reserves. And in addition, also faster reserve products called fast frequency response. Although the TSOs which are involved in the project actually don't have this product in their portfolio, they also consider this as a potential future product that they would like to acquire when needed for their system. So then we have two products for congestion management. Congestion management reserved product is a capacity-based product to keep the capacity available to cope with structural constraints, while the non-reserved product is an energy-based product which is procured closer to delivery to cope with unpredicted constraints. Then we have two reactive power products to deliver the voltage control service, the steady state reactive power product for normal operation of the system, and the dynamic reactive power product for system disturbances. And in addition, in one of the demos, we will also test an active power product to cope with voltage issues. And here the flexibility providers would be demand response. Then we also considered inertial response. It's not clear yet, probably this won't be part of the demonstrators, but we made a distinction between physical inertial response and virtual inertial response. It's not shown on the slide, but this can then be delivered through the fast frequency response product. And then the black start, we defined a product for a capacity product, which is procured long-term ahead. And then finally, we have controlled islanding, where we didn't define specific products for the services for this service, but we consider that the products for voltage control and balancing would also be needed to control the island. So this is a short overview of the list of products. The specifications of the different products that we defined can be found in the deliverable, which is available on our CoordiNet website. Then as a next step, so now we talked about the services and products. As a next step, we have focused on the market models or coordination schemes, which need to be put in place to procure these grid services. And yeah, in any case, a stronger coordination is needed between DSOs and TSOs. And this coordination can be organized in different ways. Therefore, we look at coordination schemes, and this has been taken from the Horizon 2020 project SmartNet, where they defined coordination schemes as the relation between TSO and DSO, defining the roles and responsibility of each system operator when procuring and using system services. There does not exist a one-size-fits-all coordination scheme, because local circumstances, the maturity of the market, but also regulation differ very much between countries, but also between TSO and DSO grids. And therefore, we propose a mapping of coordination schemes. And we actually propose a categorization structure that helps to group similar coordination needs together. Here we should note that we only consider the market coordination during the procurement phase. This is the only thing we consider to define these groups of coordination schemes. But of course, other coordination would also be needed, and information exchange during the, between the TSO and DSO during all other phases. Also here, the starting basis, the project which first introduced coordination schemes was a SmartNet project. So we used this as a starting basis, but complemented this with other papers, reports that looked at coordination schemes or that covered certain aspects of coordination between DSOs and TSO. Also, we looked at policy discussions, and of course, a very important input in this demonstration project is the needs of the TSOs and the DSOs in our demonstrator. This slide gives an overview of the references we assessed to come to the classification structure. And we don't have time to go into details, but also more details and the assessment of this you can find in our deliverable. So going to the next slide, here we see the classification layers that we use to define the different groups of coordination schemes. So the first classification layer deals with the location of the need within the system. A distinction is made between central need, local need, or a central and a local need. The second classification layer looks at the primary buyer of the flexibility, and here a distinction is made between TSOs, DSOs, TSOs and DSOs, or even commercial parties, so external stakeholders, and also peers. So we also look at more distributed market models in which peers would actually be the sole buyers and providers in the market. Then the third layer looks at the number of markets that we consider, and here we make a distinction between single or multiple markets. And then we also look at the fact whether the TSO has access to distributed energy sources. And this resulted in 7 groups of possible coordination schemes. So I will quickly summarize the 7 groups. So maybe we can first start at the first left-hand side model, so the central market model. So in this case, there is only one market and there is only one buyer, the TSO, to cope with the central need. Distinction can be made whether or not there is access to distributed energy sources, but no option. So when there is no access, this is not really seen as an extension of current system, and it's not in line with objectives. So we only consider the yes option. Then on the complete right, you see the local market model, where the DSO is a single buyer. In practice, this could, for example, occur when there is no transmission grid. So this could be, for example, on an island, or also for controlled islanding at distribution level. So we also consider this very local case in 2 of the use cases of the demo, as you will see later on in the presentation. Then we have 3 groups here, where both DSO and TSO needs are considered. If there is only one market, so one single market, then we have the common market model. If multiple markets are considered, we have the multi-level or the fragmented market model. The difference between these models is that in the case of the fragmented market model, the DSO has no access to sources connected at the distribution grid. And in this case, there need to be certain agreements between the TSO and DSO on the exchanges between the interconnections between both their networks. And then the next model is actually an extension of the common market model. So it's the same, but also here commercial parties. So typically balanced responsible parties would be buying on the same market. So this is a quite futuristic market model. Then as a last type of market structure, one could also consider distributed market models, as I said. So in this case, we consider local needs or a combination of local and central needs. And depending on the needs considered, it can be one or multiple market, and on the specific design that we come up with. And one possibility is a peer-to-peer market setup, which will also be studied in the project. Currently, there is still a lot of uncertainty how TSOs and DSOs needs can be taken into account. So we need to further study this, and this will be done in a separate task within the project, which is currently ongoing. And yeah, this was my last slide. Maybe as a next step in the project, all these coordination schemes will be translated into more specific market designs, and this work is currently ongoing. And now in the next part of the presentation, Goncha will show a bit on the combination of coordination schemes and services combinations, which will be demonstrated in the different demos of the project.
Yes, thanks a lot, Chris, for the introduction and the fundamentals of the work that we did from RWTH Aachen side in the project CoordiNet to define the business use cases that are necessary for the stakeholders and partners also to see, okay, what are we really up to in the project and which products can we use and in which kind of markets can we use it. Here you can see our first slide introducing the use case methodology, which is quite known already in the smart grid framework, where we this use case methodology is a standardized method to develop use cases, also business use cases on the top layer, and especially useful and favorized for fostering a common understanding of functionalities and the actors. And whenever you have a lot of different stakeholders and the processes might be complicated and complex, which is the case in such a pan-European flexibility platform that we are currently developing in the project. So you can see that in the basics of this methodology, we can split it up into domains coming from the generation side up to the customer premises. And in the zones, one identifies if certain things that are developed are rather on the market or on the operation side or really a process in the field. We first of all started with the top-down approach in the CoordiNet project. So we really went to our stakeholders and said, okay, what is the actual business behind a certain flexibility activation, for instance? With whom are you going to develop this business? And how are we going to do this? This is currently under definition. So I am going to present you this very top layer. Yeah, here you can again see how we really did it. Basically, we used this already standard template where the stakeholders defined what is actually a scope of a certain demonstration. Marco earlier already introduced the different demos. We will define those a little bit more in detail now. You will find now in the final document, also on the link below, you'll find all the details of the demos, what we want to achieve, and who is going to be involved in there, also as partners, and where this is going to happen, and also which products and market mechanisms which we are using. So to develop all these things, we really started early in the project doing workshops and bringing all people together to really discuss if the solutions that we're developing are manageable, valuable for everybody. And so all the results, as I said, are to be found in the deliverable attached. Now, in this deliverable, you will find also a new structure that we are trying to introduce. We saw the domains were showing that we have a transmission domain and a distribution domain, and now we want to propose that the CoordiNet platform that is under development is kind of the core part of the communication and control also between TSO and DSO. On this slide we cannot see, but there we also have the third parties and the aggregators that can also be included and participate via the platform on the different markets. So here it is shortened as also flexibility service providers, FSPs. And so this CoordiNet platform is really intended to support the data exchange between the different actors, but also not only the communication, it should also enhance to make trades and products visible and transparent, and to be able to identify on which markets we are really dealing now. Also in the deliverable, you'll find those diagrams where we are saying, okay, in a specific business use case, in this case, the example shows a voltage control business use case where we are targeting this multi-level market approach that Chris has presented earlier. And here we just map basically what objectives does each of the actor have, and how do they relate to each other? Is maybe the market operator an independent entity, and how are, for instance, service providers also included in this? Since it's more complicated to go through these UML diagrams, I try to make this more clear, the objectives of the TSOs and DSOs, first of all, in this presentation, but you will also see also the objectives of the other active parties. Now we'll start to introduce the different demonstration sites in Greece, Sweden, and Spain. And I will only show a subset of the business use cases currently, because we just have limited time in this webinar. Here you can see the Greek activity in CoordiNet. We've identified two business use case types. One business use case targeting towards products for voltage control, and the other one for congestion management. But then we realized that these needs of voltage control and congestion management can be realized with different market mechanisms. Therefore, we have in total 4 business use cases for the Greek demonstration. Maybe one background information. So the Greek market is currently still under development, developing new day ahead, intraday, and balancing markets. So in this involvement phase, basically, we are also trying to put these new products. Here we have the DSO head-no and the transmission system operator IPTO. Here you will see that the TSO, for instance, in the voltage control business use case, in the case A, we are looking into a multi-level market model. But in case A and B, the idea or the objective of TSOs and DSOs is both to keep the voltage level in accepted limits. And then also to minimize, of course, the renewable energy curtailment. So now the flexibility from the transmission, on the transmission side for this voltage control can be used by the TSO. But if the TSO is also using it in the flexibilities from the distribution for voltage control in the transmission system, we would talk about a multi-level market model. This is the differentiation, basically. Also, you will see that we have these numbers of actors also in the next slides. For instance, here we said, okay, the service providers can be multiple. So there's a service provider for the transmission system, the flexibility service provider and distribution, and a flexibility service provider. So we have 3 actors in the left bottom corner. Now I have to switch to the next use cases demo. Here we have Red Electrica as transmission system operator and Iberdrola Distribution for some of our pilot sites and e-distribution for the others. You can, we said before that's there we have Murcia, Albacete, Cadiz, and Alicante as demonstration sites. And here we are really looking into all products that have been introduced before, so congestion management, balancing services, voltage control, and controlled islanding. I would like to focus on two of those, which are special. So in the congestion management, of course, you might know that the interest is on both sides to solve congestion in the system, in transmission and distribution network. And for the TSO, in this case, we go towards the common market, where we have one market, but both TSO and DSO are active there, our primary buyers. And this would be the common ancillary services market to solve congestions. The DSO, in this case, there can be also a local congestion. So the DSO would be interested maybe also to have local ancillary services. And so he would be then the primary buyer here. And so both of these options are going to be tested in terms of congestion management. Then the controlled islanding is one special case in CoordiNet. And here the DSO is planning also quite similar to the congestion before, that whenever there is an outage or a plant maintenance, that the DSO is still capable of supplying uninterruptedly the power in the system and not losing any load. Here, the TSO definitely needs to be informed. So he's also in the communication process, but the main buyer here is only the DSO. Coming to the Swedish business use cases, there we are tackling congestion management, balancing services for local needs, and balancing services for the central system, so for the TSO. And you can see that as actors, we have Svenska Kraftnät E.ON in Vattenfall, so Svenska Kraftnät being the TSO and the other ones the regional DSOs. Here I would like to present you the special case of the balancing service business use case for the DSO in Gotland. Since Gotland is an island, they are quite affected by also larger capacities going in and out. The regional DSO wants to support the local DSO. So we have a hierarchy of DSOs mainly. So the regional DSO wants to support the local DSO to improve the power quality and secure the power supply there. And also they want to also enable new renewable energy sources to be connected. While the TSO also sees Gotland as some option to improve the liquidity on the manual frequency restoration reserves market. So this is a very new approach, and we are now in the definition phase of how this can happen. But as you can see, this is was one local need. To summarize this all, I think I have to skip this version, but you will see here that we have now several business use cases defined. We didn't talk about all of them, but you can see on the left-hand side the products that we're using. So what is the need? Balancing, congestion, controlled islanding, or voltage control. In which time frame are we trying to develop these or solve it, or where is the market basically, and who is the primary buyer, and where are the resources? This is defined in the market model. And the product type, there we have some fully colored figures that are sure going to be tested, and some of them are tentative. Also, you can see, normally there's a mistake in the slide. On the right-hand side, you will see it also in the deliverable. We had defined which assets are active in these business use cases. So depending on what length this business use case box has, we know, is it storages active in the business use case? Are there flexibility service providers, aggregators, and so on? So I would definitely encourage you to have a look in the deliverable and get real insights and details on this topic. With this, I would like to close my presentation. Thanks a lot, and I'm happy to answer any questions.